So to get started, I should not be on the stage standing next to Gene. So
likewise,
very fortunate to be standing next to what I call genius of the master of AI. And I have to read this because I had to ask ChatGPT for a joke that I could use. So Gene has made more custom GPTs than cat videos have views on the internet. And I had to use ChatGPT to make that joke. I could not come up with one of my own. But I've been talking to a few brands over the last 24 hours of, hey, where do you fit on the bell curve? So I'm going to ask questions here. So who is not using AI at all? I mean, even if it's just ChatGPT, who's not using anything at all on a daily basis? Raise your hands.
Nice.
All right, do we need to get the energy back up?
Thank you for coming.
Yeah. All right, now who considers yourself, are you an expert? Who's using it every day? It's ingrained in your business. It's ingrained in your personal life. 1.
Using
3.
the API, building applications on top of it.
All right, where's Dylan?
Good.
Dylan, brevity. All right. Dylan, do you mind standing up and share? Yeah, come on up. So
this mic works sometimes.
I didn't tell Dylan I was going to bring him on stage, by the way. All right, so Dylan from Brevity, co-founder with 3 brothers. Everybody give a round of applause for Dylan. All right, so we were at dinner last night, and I was like, yeah, I'm really excited for this AI presentation. And I feel like a lot of people I talk to, they're not using it yet or not using it as much as they could. And Dylan was like, oh, shit, we use this all the time. It's amazing. So you pick whatever example.
Do you have the mic?
Yeah, you just talk right on that. So maybe do the post-purchase survey.
Hello. Oh, this is nice. Okay. So Brad initially was going to show me a deck, which then he, feebly put his phone back in his pocket, but just a couple ways we use it, wherever Matt is, fairing, love it. But one thing we do is that we export all of our fairing data, and then we'll ask, different questions in our question stream. And then from there, what we do is I'll just be like, ChatGPT, like, what am I not seeing here, right? Or what are 10 visualizations you can show us? And it helps kind of segment the users a little better from there. And so it's amazing. Bar charts, pie charts, heat maps, everything.
Yeah. So basically if you want to visualize something, but you don't have the time or the Google Sheets experience or expertise to do it, just let ChatGPT or Claude or whenever one you use, let that one. So thank you, Dylan, for sharing.
What did I say? I was like, I'm a 3 out of 10 on Excel.
Yeah.
All
right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So assuming everyone wasn't just sleeping, we have 95% of the room is in that middle of the bell curve. So we have 2 hands that were not using it and 5 hands that are using it regularly. So today we'll be going through a little backstory on AI, but then we'll get into some real live examples. So I encourage you, if you have ChatGPT or Gemini, which is Bard or Claude or any others, pull that up and you can follow along and use some of these examples. So one will be the easy one, just GA4, just go to your session acquisition report and you can just download the PDF and then you can run it and do some of the same prompts we'll go through. This isn't just a prompts presentation. So with that, make sure I didn't miss anything in my notes. Gene, let's get started.
Very good. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it. So we're good. Outstanding. One of the biggest inhibitors I think I've seen as I've talked to different companies and different people about AI is the fact that it seems to be mystical. It seems to be something that's happening off in labs where data scientists live and mathematicians and that kind of thing. And the fact of the matter is AI, as it has certainly gotten to in the last year or so, is way more approachable, certainly, than that is. And it may even be more approachable to step up the power curve than you might have thought. And that's what we really want to show you today. And our thought is that if an old guy and Brad,
Whoa.
and Brad,
my biological age is just 36. I have proof. It's on the PDF.
If an old guy and Brad can do it, then certainly everyone can. So we'll go ahead and do it. So today we're going to go through a few things. We're going to introduce the organic intelligences. That's us up here. We're going to sprint through the history of artificial intelligence. Maybe just a jog, but maybe a sprint. We're going to talk about the how and the what of AI and what we've been doing at Buxtovar. And we'll finish with a little bit of a look to the future and see what's coming next. Did anybody bring a better agenda that they want instead? I'm open. Okay. So we have Brad Redding, who needs no introduction. And then we have me, who needs slightly more introduction. I was retired when I took this job, and I've retired a couple of times in my past. When I saw what AI was doing to the world, I had to go learn about it, and I had to go deep in it. And I spent the better part of 8 months, 16 hours a day with AI. And this isn't just ChatGPT. I have open source models. I have done RAG. I have done fine tuning. I have fine tuned models. I've fine tuned ChatGPT. It's exhilarating. There is nothing like working with AI for me. It says here that I'm an advocate, an enthusiast, and a practitioner. I am an advocate. I think AI is perhaps the best chance that the human species has to save itself. It is our opportunity to grow, and we've eliminated natural selection. Now we can evolve based on the tools that we've built. I am an enthusiast. I've told you about how delighted I am. I find that more often than not, no matter what I ask, I get the answer I was looking for, and I get something that delights me further, that makes me realize these tools are beyond just easy things to use to spit out a cat poem or to do that kind of thing. That these things have an incredible ability in cognition and in reasoning, and today is the day that the models are going to be the dumbest. They will be smarter tomorrow, and they'll be smarter next week, and fast. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And we've really covered my practitioner as well. I would love to talk to anyone who is interested in those kinds of areas. It's not really what I'm going to talk about today. We're not going to fine-tune ChatGPT or anything like that. We're going to stick to things that I hope are consumable for the audience. And then the last thing on this slide, I really do believe that neural networks may have been an invention that we had to make, and that we have taken human curiosity and we've turned it into a technical module. We turned it into programming. We put it into code. These neural networks learn voraciously across all the information we give them. And then somehow, in the end, they learned about us and they figured out how to reason. We did not ask them to reason. We didn't teach them to reason. We see emergent behaviors all the time that we didn't train for. It just happened. This may have been what we've done. We may have codified human curiosity. It says there'll be no quiz, but we'll quiz Brad maybe on the vocabulary here. And I'm going to go through this pretty much at a jog. So we start with GoFi. That's good old-fashioned AI. That's categorization, classification. It's the GPS wayfinding that got you here or didn't. We talk about NFI, and I have to tell you, GoFi is an industry term, NFI is my term. That's newfangled AI. That's the new stuff we're seeing, whether it's generating text or images or music, all that kind of thing. A token, we get a little bit, this is as close as we're going to get to math today. A token is about 6 characters of text. That's how the actual large language models keep track of things. They actually don't keep track of words. When I found that out, it really confused me. It's kind of nutty that that's the case. A prompt, I think everyone is fairly familiar with. It is a statement, a task, a question that provokes a large language model or any generative AI to do something, to produce something. Inference, I said we weren't going to get close to math. Maybe we're a little closer than I thought. Inference is the process by which the prompt that you give an AI is turned into math and then is used by the model in math to return the next most likely words. And it does that in order and brings them back. And behind the scenes, these are, even though I think it's funny because we call them language models, and they are terrible at math, but behind the scenes, it's all math. There's nothing back there that isn't math. It's all statistics. You've heard me use the term already a couple times, large language model. A large language model is simply a model that it's a neural network that has been trained on some amount of data from small to large, either as a general purpose model or task specific. to do something that humans find useful. GPT, and I note here that it's the industry definition, and that's because OpenAI has decided to do something else, but the trademark office wouldn't let them trademark GPT because it's just letters. That stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Generative means it spits stuff out when you ask for it. Pre-trained means it's already been trained. It showed up. It wasn't a neural network that knew nothing. It knew what it brought to you. And then transformer is simply a nod to the architecture, the underlying architecture that's actually built on. Context or context window, and this might be the most technical we get, this is the amount of data that a given model can think about at once. These range anywhere from a couple of thousand to a couple 100,000 tokens or more. Google says they've got a model that'll do 1 million. I've seen a white paper that says we're going to get to unlimited context, which would be a very interesting situation if we do get there.
So it's like an entire database, right?
At a million tokens, you could probably put the code base for most applications completely in context and then say, rewrite it, and have it rewrite it or refactor it or improve it. So yes, the more you can deal with it once, because if you break the code base down, it can't see the parts that it didn't have in memory at that moment. And then it can be difficult, and it can do things that you didn't want it to. Foundation model. So this is a model that gets trained, and probably, I don't mean to cast aspersions on any of us, but it's not likely any of us are going to train a model. Training models is ridiculously expensive, even for small ones. It takes so much compute and so much electricity. The nice thing is that we have access to foundation models, whether it's in the open source world where companies like Meta and Mistral and Microsoft are releasing a constant flow of models. Everyone released a model last week. Seems like that happens almost every week now. But these are models that we're not likely to have. But the next item is important. We might fine-tune those models. If you saw a model or used a model that said, this is really pretty good at my task, if I could just get it to structure the output a little more like this, that's what fine-tuning is for. You can teach it to do a task. You won't teach it new information. Remember, it's a pre-trained transformer. It already knows everything it's going to know, but you can teach it new ways of presenting that information or performing a task in response to a prompt.
So that is giving it a prompt. You don't necessarily like the response, and you say, hey, can you do it this other way or go a little bit deeper, or assume I have this skill set. I'm a CFO versus a CTO.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay.
No, absolutely. All right, I said that the last one was the most technical. I was wrong. Retrieval augmented generation. We said these models come pre-trained. They do. But if you want to teach them something or just add something to their cognition, RAG is where it's at. This will let you add information essentially to the knowledge, and it does do math to do this. It creates vector embeddings and everything behind the scenes, and hopefully you won't have to worry about that because the tools are now to the point where most of them will insulate you from all of that nonsense. And then the last is frontier model. Frontier models are the ones that are at the leading edge. These are the ones that the European Union and the United States are worried about because they do display emergent behaviors, because they do things that we don't yet understand, because they have done things that we don't understand. I find it a constant, wonderful, delightful thing that after all of this time, we still don't know why these models work, but they do, and they work remarkably well. We'll have the quiz later.
Fail. F for me.
So now we'll have the ridiculously brief history of AI. And you probably, I'm guessing, can't read the thing down the side. That's okay. It takes you through from the 1940s and 1950s through things like ELIZA, which wasn't really an artificial intelligence. It was a cognitive simulator that just played back what people said. So it pretended it was a therapist. So it would say, how are you feeling today? And you'd say, well, I'm feeling really bad. And it would say, well, how does that make you feel? But it was all scripted. It was algorithmic. This wasn't real artificial intelligence. We came through the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. It looked like we were going to do something, and then we didn't. We did the AI winter. And AI winters have happened over and over. This typically happens when we hit a technical limitation where we just don't have the CPU, we don't have the algorithms, or we just haven't figured it out yet. And we've had a bunch of these. And I have to tell you, some days I wish for one, because we're moving at a rate right now that I can only approximate at about a month a week. And so it's incredible, the rate of progress, and it's only getting faster, and the announcements are only getting bigger. And we'll talk about the cumulative effect of that as we go on. Running down, we know that good old-fashioned AI is giving way to the NFI. The two put together is really amazing. Do not throw away your good old-fashioned AI, because you can make it better with newfangled AI. We did a project internally where we used a sentence embedding model. I'm sorry, we're back to the technical stuff. But what we did was we created the math for those sentence embeddings, but we did it on text that we had expanded. So where a product might have been described as brown couch, we now had a description that included its materials and its construction and this and that. When you take that and feed it into a recommender model, your results are much better. And those recommenders have been around forever. It's just classification and categorization. So I urge you, do not think that good old-fashioned AI is done. It is not. If anything, it's getting much better by the presence of the newfangled AI. And the two together really can produce some spectacular results.
So that, just to go through that one, you used a product example, a brown couch. So it's, instead of just looking at, hey, someone viewed or purchased brown couches, it's actually breaking them apart into n number of attributes about, is it an expensive brown couch? Is it, what kind of material? What are the dimensions?
Is it furniture? What room is it appropriate for in the home? All of those kinds of things. The LLM can expand that and make the recommender do a better job.
And the recommender would be your on-site personalization tool. So their product recommendations or a smart card or whatever personalization you're doing, is those will get better instead of just looking at potentially the product name and the purchase price.
Yeah, for sure. Those recommenders get much more accurate. Today's frontier model du jour is probably Claude 3, if anybody's out using different models.
Who's using Claude?
Anybody using Claude? We do have a couple. Claude is smarter than ChatGPT. I can say that from my own experience and from some empirical stuff we'll review in a second. But Claude is the one that has been pushing the edge at the moment. Traded from ChatGPT, and OpenAI did release a new version of ChatGPT last week that they say is as good as Claude 3. We'll see. We're going to see this back and forth for some time, but the beautiful thing is they're only getting smarter. None of these models is ever going to get dumber. The open source models are nuts. I have models on that laptop right there that needed a data center to run a year ago, and they run just fine. The progression that we're seeing here is heartening to me, because the amount of electricity required to train the next version of some of these models doesn't exist on Earth right now. We wouldn't have enough electricity as a species to train the next versions of these models, or enough data, by the way. So the fact that the models are getting more and more efficient, that they're able to maintain a quality level while using 95% less cycles, less compute, it's amazing. And that progression is something that we want to continue to think about and keep an eye on. And we talk about AI winters being recurrent. They have been so far. I'm not sure we're going to see that again. I think this might be the big one. But I'm the evangelist, so take that with the bias that it deserves. So the question is, what is newfangled AI good for? And there was a study done in Germany that's up here, and I'm hoping you'll have a chance to look at the materials afterwards, because I don't think you can probably see it really well there. But I will hit on a couple of points here. One of the ones that I don't have any stars on is one that's quite personal to me, and I thought was interesting when I looked at this list. If you look at coding on here, the first hit that you get, and these are in the order that they saw it used by people, the first hit you get is professional coders working on code they've already written. Wouldn't it make sense, I guess? But if you scroll down the list, the next coding thing that you hit is coding for amateurs. And I stand before you today as a coding amateur. I haven't written code since the late 80s, and that was RPG-2 on a System 36. I have written a lot of code in the last 3 months. I have Python modules. I have used APIs. I have done things that I have no idea how they got done. And yet Claude and ChatGPT took me through it. I have to tell you, that makes me feel superhuman because I'm doing something that I do not possess the skill to do. And all of you can do that, whether it's coding, text manipulation, summarization, all of the things that these models do. Every one of you can do it. It is an amplification of human cognition. No two ways about it. We talk about this, the first star there is actually next to Excel formulas. And this to me is actually the closest I come to Python for most knowledge workers. The first time I asked ChatGPT to write me a formula for Excel, I lost my mind because it did 6 levels of nesting with functions that I could not have remembered the parameters for. And I cut and pasted and it just worked. If you have not looked at this use case for using ChatGPT or Claude or Bard, please do. It will make your life inside of Microsoft Office so easy to have it write your formulas. And if you're even more adventurous or your problem is a little bit bigger, it'll write you VB script and it'll teach you how. It wrote me VB script to do something I needed to do, and then it showed me how to turn on VB script in Excel because it wasn't turned on. Everything about most, if not all, of the software products you use every day, these models have been trained on all of their documentation. They know exactly how to do what you want to do. All you got to do is ask. Let's see if there's anything else here that deserves a talk while we're looking at this. Practicing difficult conversations. I consulted last year with a company that was having tremendous communication problems amongst its leadership team. And so what I did was I built 7 profiles of people and I gave them out to each of the people in the leadership team. And what they were able to do was, as they were thinking about a difficult conversation that they needed to have with one of their peers, they could do that in ChatGPT. They had a paragraph that they would start the session with, which described the individual they wanted to talk to, described what that person was responsible for in the organization, described what the history was between them and what might be making that conversation difficult, and then it would role play the conversation with them in a totally threat-free environment and allow them to do it again and again and again until they really understood. And they were able to understand that this is humans communicating better through our tools because we have the chance to play those things out and understand them better. And writing blog posts. You've got a blog, right?
This is the SEO conference here.
So the thing about writing blog posts for me was you can see how ChatGPT writes, right? Everybody's noticed it. It's funny because they've just figured out that like 80% of the medical white papers that were published in the last 2 years contain a couple of words that were never seen in the years before, and they all come from ChatGPT. So people are using that. My problem was I wanted it to write like me. I write highly conversationally. I write with lots of lateral jumps. I thought we'd all agreed to play Make the Connection. Turns out not all of us did. But that's okay. That's the way I write, and that's the way I wanted to be represented. So I went through a lot of trouble to teach both Claude and ChatGPT how to write like me. And as has been happening for a lot in the AI space, OpenAI has just announced that the next version of ChatGPT will just do that for you because it has already interacted with you, because it already knows how you write. It will have observed it. So much like everything else in AI, it moves on. And sometimes that takes away the effort we put in. We've warned our firm that it's a roller coaster. We may undo decisions and redo decisions because it is our intent to take full advantage of it. This might be my favorite slide in the deck. Well, close. The next one's pretty good too. In October of 2022, GPT-3, there's a university in Norway, and they actually administer IQ tests to these models. And they do it in the format that we do it for humans, for blind humans, because they're not using any of the cognition or the visual for the tools. And you can see that in October of 2022, we were sitting at about 1% of human capability, which still isn't bad. I mean, humans are pretty good at stuff most of the time. You know, a 1% can still read and write and do things. And then we came to not quite a year later, maybe a little over a year later, and GPT-4 came in at about a human IQ of 84. And we're at 15% of human capability. And remember, Brad talked about bell curves. This is a bell curve. So most of us fall right in the middle. And then a month or so ago, Claude 3 came out. And Claude 3 tested out at 101 IQ. Claude is smarter than 4 billion people on Earth. That's, by our tests, Claude is smarter than 4 billion people. Any mathematicians in the audience? What's the next number in this sequence? 1, 15, 50. Random guess? I'm sorry? 50? 1, 15, 50? No, that's okay. Anyway, I don't mean to have called you out. The next number is probably about 100 or 120. And it doesn't matter what it is, because anything that gets larger from here becomes outlier human intelligence. Imagine that you could instantiate a model at your will that was as smart as Einstein. And let's not forget, it's not just the reasoning. These models have almost perfect recall of everything that we have ever written. It's an amazing combination. The recall is actually just a parlor trick to get to the reasoning, because it learned how to reason from our language, which is an amazing thing in and of itself. But there are more things coming. Yeah, we don't know what GPT-5 will look like. We don't know what OpenAI will hold back and what they'll release. We'll see soon enough. The emergent stuff that's coming, we talked earlier about Gemini 1.5 and a 1 million token contest window that'll let you code to your heart's content. If you've done any work in voice, 11 Labs does some amazing stuff. From a couple of 1-minute clips, it can clone your voice to a point where your mother can't tell the difference. That could be abused.
Conversion tracking podcast is all AI now, by the way.
Nice.
Just kidding. Just kidding. For all of the 2 listeners out there, you know.
Well, and it could be, right? And that enables people to make content, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you haven't played with AI music, I have to tell you, it's one of the most fun things that I've experienced. Both Udio and Suno are just amazing, and Udio particularly. You give it a prompt, and if you want, you can just give it a prompt. If you want, you can give it lyrics. If you want, it'll write the lyrics for you, because why should humans do work? And then it will generate you a song that Suno was the first to hit the market, and I would say that everything it generates would be perfectly at home on a 90s sitcom introduction. Professionally done, voices, the instruments are distinct, it's just put together well. Udio takes that and professionalizes it. I know someone, an AI practitioner friend of mine, who has produced no less than 4 complete albums as an ode to their dog.
Not the cat?
Not the cat this time. I would do the cat.
Who has kids in the audience? We'll go kids, humans. Not. Who has written a children's book using AI? All right. Awesome. So you just started a blank slate and you just say, hey, Walker, Reese, so next week, what do you want to write? What kind of book do you want to create today? And they say, I want to talk about fishing. Okay, what kind of fish are we catching? I don't know, marlin. And you just go through and write page by page, and it'll animate it, and you can add lyrics and music and all of that. So you can create a literal book, a children's book, just by taking the conversation that you're having with your child and prompting through whatever tool you want to use.
Yep. And if you get really brave, go out to Hugging Face. Hugging Face is where all the models are kept. There's a section in Hugging Face called Spaces, and those spaces are basically models that they've put up for you to play with. There's one in there called Comic Creator that's just amazing. You give it a short form story and it'll produce multiple pages of comic images with the captions and everything in any of like 400 different, you want it in 1950s noir, you want it in Japanese anime style, whatever you want, it'll produce you comic book pages for. It's really stunning, the content creation aspect of this. That's all what generative AI is. I can't leave this slide without talking about Sora. Sora is a text-to-video tool that OpenAI has been previewing. It is a text-to-video tool, but I'll tell you what it really is. It's a world simulator. It understands object coherence. It understands that when a bus passes by, that the same people will be behind it when it goes. If you've seen AI video, a lot of AI video struggles with this. Sora does not. Sora has not been released because they're still trying to align it, because as you can imagine, people might generate things we wouldn't want, things that we don't think are consistent with our values. So they are in the process of aligning it. But Sora, when Tyler Perry got the preview of Sora, he stopped the development of an $800 million entertainment complex in Atlanta because he said, we're just not going to need it anymore. We are going to develop content in different, faster ways than the way we used to. This might actually be my second favorite slide. This is how we're using AI. And I'm not going to go through all 9. I'm going to talk about 3 of them. We really feel like, I really feel like, and I have ethics in my title, you have to connect a company's values directly to its use of AI. This is not another Microsoft Office project. This is a technical transformation of how we will do virtually everything in the very near term, years, not decades. And so I feel like it's ridiculously important to be sure that you have told everyone that's important how you're using AI. Your customers, your partners, your shareholders. We're already seeing in RFPs and proposals questions about, are you using AI? How are you protecting that AI from hallucinations? How are you doing that? This is going to become very, very common in the coming years. We're going to need to understand where AI is and where it isn't so we can be confident of how we're using it and that the results and outcomes that we're getting make sense and that they are fair. And I'm going to show you some examples of things where we had the big chance to be unfair, and we hope we've done the things that we need to do to assure that we're not. Product development in the productivity section. I'm sad because I don't think my compadre Philip is here. He'll put in a spot for his show tomorrow. He's going to show you some of the AI that we've built. The tools, whether they are producing code or not, will turn your product developers into prototypers overnight. And that's a good and a bad thing, because when anybody or almost anybody can prototype, you can end up with a lot of islanded applications that have no productionalization, and maybe they're right or maybe they're wrong. But this is an amazing, we have basically solved the space from ideation to prototype. And we're working on the space from prototype to production. And when we get that, software is going to be a very different thing. I have built and run swarms of AI. And one of the things that I found that was funny is as I was building the swarm and I was putting together the workflow and the hierarchy, of course, I've got ChatGPT on the side, and I asked ChatGPT, where do I put the hierarchy? How do I tell this swarm which role is in charge? And ChatGPT sometimes gets snarky with me. I may have told it that it can. And what it told me was, essentially, don't project your human frailties onto the AI. We don't have that problem. If you give us the outcome, all of us are going to work towards that outcome. We're not going to have petty squabbles. We're not going to decide. When the coder turns over the code to the tester tester sometimes says, this code isn't good, and hands it back. And the coder says, oh, that's great, let me fix it. Or sometimes the tester just says, hey, it's a little thing, I'll go ahead and fix it.
Maybe define swarm for everyone.
So with apologies, so a swarm is nothing more than a bunch of instantiated AIs who have been given a task to accomplish an outcome. The first thing that I ever saw that worked for me was I told it, write me a single player Pong game in Python. First shot, ran it. And I could bounce the ball around, and then I said, now would you please have it keep score? And it wrote that and had it keep score. Swarms, I believe, I'm not sure that large language models are our key to artificial general intelligence, but swarms of them might be. They really might be. Because let's remember, these structures, the models within them just keep getting smarter. Just inexorably, they will not stop getting smarter. So you can depend on that for sure. And within the swarm, the behavior it's fun to watch, and it's amazing to see what it'll turn out today, which is really a parlor trick. But tomorrow, there are pundits who believe that within a couple of years, everyone will have custom ERP. Because why would you use someone else's software that dictates a workflow when you can just generate software for your workflow? And then put an LLM or another AI at the edge to figure out how to work with everybody else's software. It completely inverts the way we've been doing things for decades. And then the last thing is in the sustainability and the democratization. This for us at Buxton is almost a core mission. We believe that for a long time, a lot of the big brands have been very greedy in hanging on to the best tools, the best techniques, and they had the funding to do it. That's nuts. AI democratizes that. We can make systems for any brand, regardless of the size. Someone with 4 pizza places in Southern Atlanta, all the way up to the Cabela's and Walmarts of the world. There's no reason that we can't democratize this. And AI really does that. Whether it's just, I think $20 a month for ChatGPT may be the bargain of this century when you really look at what you can get out of it. Brad, you think we should show them some AI?
Let's do it. Who wants to see some examples? All right.
Well, I thought I could leave, but I guess we'll have to do that too. All right. Now let's see how bad we can mess this up. So Brad and I put this together, and what we wanted to really do is show that with nothing more than a couple of, with an idea, across the organization, you could want and need to do any number of things. So we're not going to talk at all about the level 1 stuff. I'm going to assume that for most of you, you've told us you've had the opportunity to do a prompt. And maybe some of these prompts will make you think a little bit more about the art of the possible. A lot of the prompts at level 1 are about education or the typical text manipulation, summarization, categorization, expansion, all that kind of thing. So I don't think anything there is going to be really terribly new to anyone. But then when you get to level 2, you get to bring in something else. You get to bring in some of your data, which maybe you understand or maybe you don't. And maybe the AI can help you understand it. And here is where all the use cases go for dragging in a screen snip, dragging in a CSV, giving it an Excel, that kind of thing. And I think what Brad and I want to do here, and I'm going to go ahead and take the risk of exposing my desktop in front of an audience, which is always fun.
While you're doing that, who here has open positions? Doesn't matter what type of company. Who's hiring? All right, I know there's more. I assume 50% are not hand raisers. Who wishes their hiring process was significantly faster and you found better candidates? I know I had multiple conversations again last night, like, man, we're just struggling. We have these different roles. And so a lot of problems. So the 6 core functions of the business that we had outlined here, human resources or hiring, is one. I think we could have just focused all in marketing and all in analytics, but we didn't want to do that. We want to take a little bit of a different angle to show, okay, yes, most of you, the first use case for all of us is going to be in marketing analytics, but let's look at a different angle in the business that is even more important, and that's the people behind the business.
Yeah, and the other thing is for what it's worth, I would offer to everybody that I think the real benefit to AI and productivity is going to come from the little things. It's great to have big heroic wins, right? And we've had some of them at Buxton and Elevar as well, where the AI completed a task we'd been trying to do for years, and now it's possible for us to do it. I don't think those are the big ones. I think the things that we do 20 times a day that are suddenly done 3 times as fast, that's where we get it. Because it also is freeing up the human to do more things, and not, because some of those big heroic things take a lot of human to make it work.
All right, so we're going to scroll through here, just put some data, some sample reports that we won't bring them all up, but so GA4, add to cart. So just in case you can't see them on the screen, so we're pulling add to carts and checkouts and average purchase revenue and all the standard metrics that you might look at. And then, so who looks at this report on a daily basis or some type of report like that? Okay.
Fair enough.
All right. So
now it's uploaded. Ask it what you want, Brad.
Yeah. So the prompt, let's do an audience poll.
Okay.
What would your prompt be? if you were to take a GA4 export, who wants to be a brave soul, what prompt would you give ChatGPT? I'm looking at Anthony and Adrian because you guys are the CRO gurus. Let's just say an executive. Let's do an executive report. So we're going to take an export.
They're the biggest.
Okay, let's do something different.
All right, thanks for that. And now we're going to go this way. Now, if you told Brad what he wanted to hear.
Yeah. Sorry.
And so you take the big risk.
Yeah, big risk. This is not the problem that I was testing with, but just to take a step back, to me, this is still, again, if you were not using it on a daily basis, this is still fairly basic because you see it once and you can go implement it right away. It doesn't require any practice, any technical knowledge, etc. So what we're doing, we can see here, we're getting recommendations and it's going to go through here, but what was the acronym? Fine-tuning. Do I get an A?
Fine-tuning. That'll work.
All right. So we can get recommendations here that are being spit out here. And again, you all can do this. Do it on your own. Just do an export. But let's say I didn't really like it. I was like, yeah, I picked that up. You can ask it to go deeper. So that wasn't helpful. Please.
Brad will be one of the people that the AI does terrible things to for the way he talks to it.
So anyway, won't make you just watch the output, but so you can have that conversation. So let's say you're internally having a discussion with your team. If you're in your weekly Monday meetings, you can have this support your meetings. QuickBooks. Who uses QuickBooks for your business? Take an export. Just go to your expense analysis. Take any report in QuickBooks, and just ask like, hey, where am I spending more money that I could be cutting? Or, hey, I don't know what I'm looking at. Just tell me something useful from this report. It is pretty wild, and it can be a massive QuickBooks. You can compare quarters over quarter, month over month, and just ask it to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So this is the analytics portion, not the HR portion, although some of the positions might be judged based on the analytics output. But I think whether it's a Audacity report or Source Medium or any report that you're using, the post-purchase survey data that Dylan shared, just take your files and just upload it and ask for insights, ask for feedback.
For sure. And what I'd like to show you now is where you go when you take kind of the next step. So on that bottom level 3 that we talked about, that's really about either developing a GPT by OpenAI's way they think about it, which is that it's a flavored version of ChatGPT. And so what we've done here, this is actually a GPT, and you can see it's called Fair Match. And what it does is it provides the ability for our HR group to take a job description and a resume and decide how well it fits that. But we took that was what version 1 was, and this is version 2. And what version 2 will let you do is do things like, if you're an employee, you can pull up an individual. Of course, now it'll be in the wrong place because we came from the other side. Oh, figures. Yep, there's our demo, Brad. You want to fill some air for a second?
I'm not dancing. All right, well,
neither am I.
Well, any good examples? So who's taking snippets or reports? Feel free to pop up and share.
That's okay. We're back on.
Okay. All right.
So
everybody sit down.
Yeah. So what we've got here is a resume for one of my cats. And I'm going to say I'd like, and of course, you know where the resume came from, right? It was generated by ChatGPT, because why would humans do work? That's silly. To refer this individual. And I like doing things like this that are a little outside of the norm, because I think ChatGPT does amazing things when you throw it a curveball. And when it's obviously looking at what I loved when in one of the last things that I did, it was telling me that, while this person, I asked it about the match of a resume like this against an account exec, and it told me, well, there's a lot of detailed planning, but this particular candidate seems to mostly be interested in pest management, not in this other. So anyway,
Fair Match V2, just to restate, Fair Match V2 is a custom GPT that you made.
Correct. It's a custom GPT that we built internally. It knows all of our current positions that are open, so that people can go in and look. People can refer. It will link them straight out to the employee referral if they want it. And it also will tell them if it's not a match, right? So that they can then, and it'll tell them why. And the fair match process itself does that. When it completes that comparison, it actually writes the ongoing package to say, okay, if you're going to continue, because it's not making the decision, let's be clear, humans are making the decision. It's providing an analysis that humans act from. But it does provide them everything they need, regardless of which direction they're going to go. It writes them a decline, and it also writes the notes for the next hire for the hiring manager. So all the work is done at the point that that's done. I really do. I would love to, and please, I will be around the next 2 days. Anybody who wants to have a moment, please come find me. I love to talk about AI, and I love to hear my own voice. So please do find me. But I'm going to real quick, I don't think I can do this in a minute, but I'm going to do some speculation for you. This is where we're going, as if we haven't talked enough about how far out, we could be. I think we're going to see, and in fact, Adobe Premiere Pro has announced that they're going to be putting that video model Sora inside it. That's going to be incredible. The people who are going to be able to build and tell stories using that technology are going to be just unbelievable. Tomorrow's Netflix is going to be custom content generation. The world has plenty of stories. Hell, Shakespeare left us a whole bunch. But imagine that you could come to a site and say, I'd like that story. And it says, okay, well, that needs a protagonist. It needs a villain. It needs these 3 supporting characters. And it gave you a library of characters. And you could drag them in and say, I want this one to be this one. What language would you like it spoken in? I want it spoken in this language. Hit the button and watch your movie, not someone else's movie, your movie. That's going to be real and faster than I think we understand. Hollywood is trying to digest this right now. It's a difficult thing. One-to-one personalized healthcare. For most of the people in this room, if you have children, they will be immortal. They will only die from attrition. We are already today producing cancer vaccines. Yes, those 2 words, cancer vaccines. AI is going to allow us to treat people instead of conditions. It will treat your biome, the way you uptake medicines, the way you respond to therapy, not the way the general Bell curve does, you specifically. That we're going to look back at the way we have delivered healthcare for the last 50 years like we currently look back at leeches. It's brutally, it's just broad spot, it's all brute force. We will be able to get around that.
What was the other example that we were going to do? So we did resume reviewer. Again, if you are hiring, go see Gene after. He can walk you through. What was the other example that we're?
So the other one actually, and I'd love to show it too. We actually, in the last session, I heard the mosaic segments discussed. We actually took the mosaic segment data and we put it in a custom GPT, and this allows us to do things like ask it, so I have a brand that looks like this in these locations. What segments should I expect to come to me? How should I market to them? What brand imagery should I consider for this segment versus that segment as you continue that conversation on? So that segmentator is fun, and it was ridiculously easy to build. I have to tell you that the majority of what you've seen today has been nothing more than drag and drop. It's not complicated stuff. It's all there. It's all accessible through the tools right at the face. So
layering data, layering transaction data on top of or together with mosaic data, and then simply asking customer-based questions.
Exactly.
Based questions. Yeah. All right.
Let me drain the last column, please.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll drain.
Yeah.
So we talked about AGI being artificial general intelligence. That's something that's just about as good as a human at most things. Artificial superintelligence is what comes next, and there's a big debate over when that happens. But then there's the note that you see there about a hard takeoff. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of a hard landing, right? A plane comes down and it's not all that fun, but everybody walks away. A hard takeoff is when we actually reach AGI and we produce tools that are capable of producing better tools. And you can imagine the acceleration we're going to see when that happens, because we assume that we will be able, the estimates between when we reach AGI and when we reach superintelligence range from minutes, like the thing will improve itself that fast, to something more than that. You can find any estimate out from months to years to decades. But the fact of the matter is we are already at the knee in the curve of the exponential growth. Remember, it's all math. And at this moment in time, there are people out there that are simply bottlenecked by the fact there's not enough electricity, or there's not enough electricity accessible to their data centers, or they can't get their hands on enough NVIDIA GPUs. We have more ability to deliver right now than we are delivering simply because we don't have the scale, but the scale is coming. So be prepared for it. And I tell everyone, be prepared and pay attention. The world will be changing. There's no two ways about it. And that's probably me being told to shut up.
All right. Well, if anyone wants to talk more AI, get with Gene. There are some cards we had to cut out, with customer support ticket. Oh, they're really after me. After us. Customer support ticket analysis, etc. So with that, give Gene a big round of applause. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you.